Biden-Harris future for our country. The best is yet to come.
America! What happened to it?
Good evening, America. I'm Kimberly Guilfoyle. Don't count on President Trump's America. Your choice is clear. Now I consider it my duty to fight to protect the socialist Biden-Harris future for our country. The best is yet to come.
America! What happened to it?
Good evening, America. I'm Kimberly Guilfoyle. Don't count on President Trump's America. Your choice is clear. Now I consider it my duty to fight to protect the socialist Biden-Harris future for our country. The best is yet to come.
America! What happened to it?
Good evening, America. I'm Kimberly Guilfoyle. Don't count on President Trump's America. Your choice is clear. Now I consider it my duty to fight to protect the socialist Biden-Harris future for our country. The best is yet to come.
America! What happened to it?
Good evening, America. I'm Kimberly Guilfoyle. Don't count on President Trump's America.
Good evening, America. Good afternoon, America. I'm Nomiki Konst, and you are watching The Nomiki Show. I just feel like every day that montage is just gonna get more horrifying because we are now on day 3 of the Trump National Convention, the Trumpster Fire Convention. Melania did Donald Trump a real solid last night, whether she felt it or not, whether she's a hostage or not. What she was last night was a human being expressing empathy for others at a time of grave national suffering, the thing that her husband and his band of sycophants can't seem to be able to do. And what does that say about the GOP when your one praise for the night is acknowledging a person who seems to have a drop of empathy, one person, all week? So Melania stepped back from the politics and divisive rhetoric. The killer of nearly 180,000 Americans was not the China virus, as Trump calls it. It was simply, as she said, COVID-19. And Melania's telling her husband was no longer the bumbling narcissist who can't even admit that the pandemic exists, let alone stop it. Dorsey, let's scroll that first clip of Melania's speech.
My husband's administration will not stop fighting until there is an effective treatment or vaccine available to everyone. Donald will not rest until he has done all he can to take care of everyone impacted by this terrible pandemic.
As striking as her different tone was on the pandemic, there was something even more jarring. Her comments on race. The Trump convention has sought to portray Joe Biden as captive to a radical left, that's us, that blames America, white America. So this part really stood out in her speech last night. Can we roll that second clip, Dorsey?
On the racial unrest in our country. It is a harsh reality that we are not proud of parts of our history. I encourage people to focus on our future while still learning from our past. We must remember that today we are all one community comprised of many races, religions, and ethnicities.
Okay, let's break this down. What's going on here? I'm sure that there must be some great psychodrama between Trump and Melania, and perhaps someday we will learn about it and find out in some tell-all book. But in the meantime, there is just old-fashioned vote counting, and that's what these conventions are about, so we can't forget that. Donald Trump desperately needs women to stand up for him, and to vote for him. I'll put this simply. Joe Biden's lead right now is entirely because of support among women. In poll after poll, both national and in key states, Biden and Trump are fighting head-to-head among men. If men get to decide this election, Trump will probably be returned to office. But among women, Biden is ahead by double digits, 17 points, in one recent national poll by CBS. Biden certainly wants to do better among men, which might be why he's doing those Corvette videos where he's tooling around with a Corvette in a campaign video. I don't know if you caught that the other day. It was bizarre. But that might be his strategy. But if Trump does not do better among women, he is a goner. And all I can say is, thank God for the 19th Amendment, right? Trump's problem among women isn't just that he's a predator. He's a heartless predator who doesn't seem to feel people's suffering or care. If he can't repair the image among women, he won't win the re-election. So make no mistake, Melania was out leading that image repair crew for her husband last night. This is also why they ran that crazy video of all the working moms in the Trump administration, even if half of them were members of the Trump family. So tonight's Trumpster Fire Convention, which is what I like to call it, includes Karen Pence, Marsha Blackburn, Joni Ernst, Elise Stefanik, and, of course, Kelly Conway, who just announced that she was leaving the White House for family reasons with, empathy. And probably also to write her tell-all book, which I can't wait to read, but I am not giving her a dime. So other takeaways from last night. I can't believe this was buried in the lead. Trump is using the government at his convention in a way that certainly breaks the norms of American politics and absolutely, probably, wink, wink, nod, nod, breaks the law. Specifically the Hatch Act. Same old, right? Melania's speech was given from the Rose Garden, which is at the White House, government property, which by law is not supposed to be used for political purposes. If that was it, we might just look the other way and say, okay, the RNC got even for when Bill Clinton let contributors sleep in the Lincoln bedroom. Zoomers, go Google that. You'll find a rabbit hole. But wait, there's more. The Secretary of State is specifically supposed to stay out of partisan politics. But there he was last night with Jerusalem twinkling behind him, which allowed him to mention that he and the president had moved the American embassy. Remember? Seriously, a video was shown at the convention of the president hosting a swearing-in at the White House for new citizens yesterday at the White House. Everything is a photo op to gaslight just enough voters to ignore or doubt reporting about his actual destructive policies. And they are just getting started. And we are just getting started. And we will not rest until we have armed you with everything you need to know about the Trumpster Fire Convention and politics, with just 7 weeks to go until polls close on Tuesday night, November 3rd, the final day of voting. So we have a big show for you today. Linda Sarsour is here. We will get her inside look at how the Biden campaign invited her to speak on a panel at last week's DNC and then crumbled afterward when AIPAC complained. No, cancel culture is not just a thing of the left. We know that. And that's not all. Later on, we have a panel with Randy Bryce from the battleground state of Wisconsin and radio show host Rick Unger, an old sparring pal of mine from TV days, and Daily Beast White House correspondent Swin Subsang. But first, a friendly reminder to smash that like and subscribe button and click that bell so you know when we go live. We have a couple more days of live programming here during the RNC from 3 o'clock Eastern to 4 o'clock. You know the jam. And a special shout out to you who are watching that are our patrons. You have made these weeks of convention shows happen. And you can join us for as low as $5 a month on patreon.com at patreon.com/The Nomi Key Show. Stay tuned. Up next is our sister, Linda Sarsour.
America, I'm Kimberly Guilfoyle. Don't count on President Trump's America. Your choice is clear. Now I consider it my duty to fight to protect the socialist Biden-Harris future for our country. The best is yet to come.
America! What happened to it?
Good evening, America. I'm Kimberly Guilfoyle. Don't count on President Trump's America. Your choice is clear. Now I I consider it my duty to fight to protect the socialist Biden-Harris future for our country. The best is yet to come.
America! What happened to it?
Good evening, America. I'm Kimberly Guilfoyle. Don't count on President Trump's America. Your choice is clear. Now I consider it my duty to fight to protect the socialist Biden-Harris future for our country. The best is yet to come.
America! What happened to it?
Good evening, America. I'm Kimberly Guilfoyle. Don't count on President Trump's America. Your choice is clear. Now I consider it my duty to fight to protect the socialist Biden-Harris future for our country. The best is yet to come.
America! What happened to it?
Good evening, America. I'm Kimberly Guilfoyle. Don't count on President Trump's America. Your choice is clear. Now I consider it my duty to fight to protect the socialist Biden-Harris future for our country.
The socialist Biden-Harris. I think it's like socialist and Biden and Harris. I'm not sure. Hello, Linda. Sister Linda Sarsour is here. Nice to see you.
Hey, Nomi.
So Linda Sarsour is the co-founder of Until Freedom. She is the author of We Are Not Here to Be Bystanders, a new book out. You got to check that out. She's a former executive director of the Arab American Association of New York and co-founder of the first Muslim online organizing platform, Empower Change. She was a national co-chair of the Women's March and the executive director, is that correct? And you're on the executive board.
Excuse me. Co-founder and co-chair, yeah.
I mean, and many, many other things. Linda, man, so much to discuss. But I kind of just want to start off with the latest I Stand With Linda trend.
The one that pull out like every week.
Every week I'm like, oh, I got that alert. I have to stand with Linda this week because it's an on week. It's like there's a rotation.
Absolutely. Lord have mercy.
The Democrats touted that they are the big tent party last week, but there were some key voices missing. For 4 decades, as you know, activists have tried to move the party's platform to acknowledge Palestinian people. But in the Trump era, with the Muslim ban, the Democratic Convention basically ignored Muslims. What is going on? You're a lightning rod. There was another controversy last week. Trump went after you, and then Biden, their campaign folded. I don't understand. Why are they so afraid of you, Linda? You're a very nice person.
It's really part of a long history, Naomi, of Arab baiting and making out Muslim Americans, Palestinians as pariahs in the Democratic Party. They'll take us when they need us and want us, but they'll immediately throw us under the bus for political expediency. And so for me, I'm not going to cower on my positions. In fact, the controversy was unprovoked. There was no commentary on Palestine, Israel. There was nothing. It was the most blandest. I was so out of character for those 3 minutes that I spoke at a Muslim delegate event. And I am an official credentialed delegate to the convention from the state of New York. And it really goes to show that on this issue of Israel-Palestine, this is like a bipartisan affair. And we are, as you know, Naomi, for those of us who are progressive Democrats and democratic socialists, we are the party, and we are the future of the party. The party got to catch up to us. I'm not trying to catch up to the Democratic Party, but just so you know, like with me, this happens to me often. It's a normal day. It's like a Tuesday, any old Tuesday. But really, my community was quite outraged and continued to be disappointed. The most glaring thing that was really disappointing to me and to my community is you have to win the state of Minnesota, and you are tied with Trump in Minnesota. You must win the state of Michigan. And Trump is only trailing Biden by 3% in the recent polls. And you leave out two of the most popular politicians in the country, and in fact, two of the most anti-Trump voices that we have that have really helped us to galvanize and feel like we're actually represented in the Democratic Party. And so my community saw those omissions. They also saw that there were no other Muslim speakers on the main stage, although back in 2016, even Hillary Clinton had mainstream Muslim speakers. And so instead of going forward, we're going backwards. And our community, Nomi, is a community, particularly immigrant Muslims or children of immigrants. We've worked hard to get our community to a place where they're participating in the voting process, participating in democracy. And in fact, Ilhan and Rashida proved the evolution of our community to organize money, to organize campaigns, to organize supporters. And then they win. And then our entire work is erased in the Democratic National Convention. And so it's been a really disappointing experience for the last week. And then when Ilhan is erased, someone like her, a Muslim woman in hijab, and the first one ever to go to Congress, and then I get thrown under the bus by the Democratic Party in the same week. The next week, which is this week, we are in the Republican National Convention. And guess who makes appearances in the Republican National Convention? Linda Sarsour and Ilhan Omar, because we are the socialist communists that are taking over America. So the Democratic Party gives fodder and actually allows for the Republican Party to go after us instead of saying, we may not agree with these women, but they are still part of our Big Tent party.
Well, and so much of this, you mentioned Ilhan Omar and Rashid Tlaib, who did not make the main stage, but I was also thinking about former Representative, now Attorney General Keith Ellison, who is leading the fight when it comes to the uprisings around this country, protecting people of color, men of color in particular, who have been shot at an alarming rate against our police who actually have organized white supremacy. This is documented. The FBI is investigating. And so he has been leading the fight, with courage in a way that I think a lot of folks wish this was happening. So I'm talking such prominent voices.
Absolutely. And Nomi, I'm actually talking to you from Louisville, Kentucky. I actually moved out to Louisville. And I'm here for the Breonna Taylor case. I'm working full time on this case right now. Literally just got out of jail and haven't slept since last night. And, one of the things.
It's a normal Tuesday for you.
No, another normal Tuesday for me. And no, the point that I'm trying to make is that Attorney General Keith Ellison in Minnesota, as you know, when George Floyd was murdered, the cops were immediately fired. They were then charged. And it took courage for an attorney general from a state within 3 weeks to come out and say, I am going to upgrade these charges against these police officers. I'm in Louisville, Kentucky, where Daniel Cameron, who spoke at the RNC, is trying to mention and talk about Breonna Taylor. It's been 5 months, over 5 months, Nomi, and a Black woman was murdered in her home here in Louisville, Kentucky. And this attorney general has not figured out how to hold any police officers accountable. So if you are really part of this moment and you really want to connect to the American people, that you want those voters that you need, like young people of color, young Black people, those in the movements who are actually the ones that knock the doors, the ones that are organizing, then you may want to be relevant. So you leave out Ilhan and Rashida. You don't even give AOC a spot. Bernie Sanders is the one that gave AOC a spot. And he told her, say whatever you want. And at the end, for 10 seconds, just say something about how you second my nomination. Because Bernie knew that if he didn't give her that opportunity, she would have never made it to the stage. And then on top of that, you had the opportunity to put a Black Muslim. So let's remember, Keith Ellison's also a Black Muslim. He was the first Black Muslim to go to Congress. He's now the Attorney General, first Muslim to win statewide office in this country. So he has a track record of making history. He happens to be a true progressive. Let's be clear about who he is. And you had an opportunity to put him up there in the context of this criminal justice fight that we're in, this fight for Black civil rights and human rights in this country. And you slipped on that too. So my thing is like, how much more can I do when you have every opportunity to do the right thing? And then you expect the progressives to have to defend you at every way. And I'm just having a hard time because I don't have substance here. And it's very sad that the DNC made those decisions.
There's nothing to work with. I mean, that's, I think, what's so frustrating is that they have no problem painting BLM on streets and taking photo ops with it. I mean, we talked about the photo op in the opening, the photo op Trumpster Fire convention this was, but the Democrats are just as guilty of photo ops in different ways. But, I mean, what I want to get to here is, like, you have two situations in which they can't go full force against the police unions. They're scared to death. Democrats are scared to death of police unions. And the other aspect is they're scared to death of AIPAC. I mean, prior to Trump getting elected, it was the norm for Democrats to go on trips with AIPAC, to Israel, on propaganda trips. It was the norm for AIPAC to feature Democrats at conventions. It was the norm, and it still is. It's just happening a little bit quietly behind the scenes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think this is a perfect example of that. Can you kind of help people understand the power of Netanyahu's right-wing AIPAC over the Democratic Party?
Not only is it the right-wing AIPAC, now we have new groups that have emerged that are a front for AIPAC, like the Democratic Majority for Israel and others that are trying to rebrand themselves as Democrats who are progressive on other issues, except for this issue of Israel-Palestine. And, we're on to them. And it's very clear they've spent millions of dollars, and other pro-Israel groups spent millions of dollars trying to take out Ilhan and take out Rashida. And everyone was like how they were vulnerable and how, oh my God, they were going to lose their seats. And they won their races with mandates. Not only did we win re-election for very important pro-Palestinian voices, then we went and put Cori Bush, a Ferguson protester, someone who is very publicly pro-boycott, divestment, sanctions, and has been very loud about her support for the Palestinian people and really the support of all people. And I'm very proud of the voters in St. Louis who put this brilliant woman in Congress. I mean, if you think the squad is fire, y'all have not heard Cori Bush. Let me just tell you, Cori Bush, our country is not ready for Cori Bush. And then we had races like Eliot Engel. It is not to be underestimated that you can take out one of the most powerful members of Congress, very influential. He was chair of the Foreign Relations Committee. I mean, this is a man that's been in Congress for a really long time. He was probably one of the most pro-Israel of members of Congress. And he was defeated by Jamal Bowman with the support of the Justice Democrats, with the support of the Democratic Socialists, with the support of progressive Jewish organizations, with the support of Muslim Americans and Yemeni Americans in the district. And nobody believed that Jamal could win. Actually, Nomi, Jamal Bowman's race, to me personally, from my observation as a New Yorker in electoral politics, is actually much more shocking than the AOC race, Yeah. And so
they didn't see her coming, and they saw him coming.
Absolutely. And so for me, I want to say, in the context of what has kind of transpired over the last week or so, is that these are the last lash outs, right? Mm. The lash from the right wing of the Democratic Party. That's it. It's over for them. It's done, because you can have a DNC convention, you could erase people, and you could make those decisions in hopes that you still can win an election. And we saw you do that in 2016, and that didn't quite work out for us. But the bottom line, let's watch the ground. The ground is with me. The ground is progressive. The people on the ground are willing to put their money on Black women, on women of color, on immigrant folks, on Black people, on people who have been the most marginalized in politics. And you know what? Not only are we putting them in office, but we're reelecting them. And the question is, whose side are you on? Are you going to stay in the past, or do you want to be in the future? I know you and I know me, we're going forward, and we're not going to cower. We're not going to try to reframe who we are, what we say to appease anyone. I am accountable to the communities that I come from and I organize with, and I'm going to stay that way.
So you do have there is a powerful arm of right-wing AIPAC interests in this country. Globally, they attacked Jeremy Corbyn. They tried to attack Bernie Sanders, didn't really work too well. They tried to attack him through you and other people. They went after Keith Ellison. Just a reminder to folks, Keith Ellison ran for DNC chair. He was Bernie Sanders' pick against Tom Perez, and a right wing led by Dershowitz, Alan Dershowitz, real great spokesperson there, guys, was sending out letters to DNC members, Islamophobic letters, basically smearing Keith Ellison. The night before, the 2 nights before the vote. And even then, it still took Obama making personal calls to folks for Tom Perez to win. So they're very organized, they're very strategic, and they don't play fair. They smear. So you get smeared a lot. And I mean, let's just be very clear, and I've experienced it too in a much minor way, but it's serious. When you're smeared, it is a security risk to you. When you're a woman who literally has to hire security to walk with you on the streets, when when people dox you, when they go after your children, I mean, this is the effect of these political tactics. So you know this very well. You've been dealing with it for years in New York, locally, and which is no joke, and now in an international way. When they go after you with these smears. Like, let's just clarify this, because I think sometimes centrists buy into them and they don't necessarily understand. This is coming from the right wing. This is not coming from normal Jewish Americans who, even Israelis, frankly. This is from the right wing. So can you clarify just like where you actually stand, just for the record, since we have this opportunity?
Absolutely, Nomi. Where this comes from is the alignment of right-wing Zionists with the white nationalists. And that's such an unlikely allyship, right? Because the white nationalists are in fact very unapologetically anti-Semitic, and they have been. It's at their root cause. It's like their root of white nationalism is anti-Semitism. So that's why for a lot of people, they get confused when they see the very staunch pro-Israel folks align with, white nationalists, with the Republican Party, with Donald Trump. For me, Nomi, these are my positions that I hold and that I am unequivocal about, that I will never cower, that I will never bend my back to appease anyone, because I have every right to have these positions. It is why my parents immigrated from living under a military occupation, so that I could live in a country and live in a democracy, so I could be born in a democracy where I can have the right to speak. So I'm not here to take anyone else's story from them, their experiences from, and even their political positions from them. But I deserve to be able to hold my own without consequence. I don't have to, this shouldn't be a risk for me to say these things that I'm about to say. I do not support a two-state solution. It is in fact, just by looking at a map of that region, there is no way to have a two-state solution with the types of settlements that have built and the way in which the land has been divided up. I believe in a one-state solution. I believe in democracy. I believe that Jews and Palestinians and those who live in that land can live under one democracy where we all can participate, where we can all have access to high quality education, healthcare, where there's no apartheid, where there's no separate bus lines for Jews and Arabs, where we could really live in a society where we're integrated and where people in our communities can be judges and lawyers and they could be in parliament. That's what I believe. I believe that there is
water.
Access to clean water, the freedom to travel, the freedom to, have control over their bodies, over their lives, right? That's what I believe. And it's actually aligned with my larger mission as a human being and the ways I show up in other work. I support the boycott, divestment, sanctions movement. This is a movement that's been around for a long time, way before I was ever born. This is a tactic. It's not an organization. They used it in the civil rights movement with the Montgomery bus boycott. We used it to stand up against South African apartheid. And now we are in 2020 using it to stand up for the rights of the Palestinian people, which again live under military occupation funded by our US taxpayer dollars. I am a vehement critic of the state of Israel because of their human rights violations against the Palestinian people. Just like I'm a vehement critic of Saudi Arabia and their human rights violations and their lack of women's rights and violations against workers and workers of color that come from around the country, around the world to work in Saudi Arabia. Just like I am a critic of China and their treatment of Uyghur Muslims right now. I'm equal opportunity. If you are a dictator, if you are a nation that engages in human rights violations, I will say what I need to say. I will do whatever it is that I can do to help. I mean, I can't be the spokesperson for every justice cause, but you would think, Nomi, that as a Palestinian, that people would expect these views from somebody like me. These are by default mainstream views in the communities that I come from. So when the Biden campaign wants to condemn these views and say that they do not belong in the Democratic Party or that they reject them as representatives of the Democratic Party and the Democratic ticket, what you in fact are saying is that you condemn the views that my communities hold, which means you condemn my communities and are saying that people who are pro-BDS, people who support Palestinian human rights are not welcomed in the party. And that's the decision they have to make. I'm not a leader of the Democratic Party, nor have I ever been an ambassador for the Democratic Party, nor do I ever want to be. And in fact, I gained a lot of street creds, Nomi. I was actually losing a little street creds because people were like, are you serious? Like, are you going to let Biden pass with this and this and this? And my framing, Nomi, just so you know, for this election has always been, I'm an organizer. That's what I do. I mobilize people. I'm not a media personality. Everybody plays a role. My role is I'm an organizer. And what I've been telling people in the Bernie movement that I'm a part of, amongst Democratic Socialists, amongst Muslim and Arab American communities is like, look, this election is about choosing your opponent in the White House. Me personally, I have chosen my opponent, and I want my opponent to be Vice President Joe Biden, because with Vice President Joe Biden, I'm not saying that I'm going to be able to hold him accountable, but at least I'm going to have the room to build movement, right? In a way that right now, Donald Trump is showing us that he's suppressing us. He has federal agents snatching people like me off the streets and kidnapping us. this is the kind of, and if you give him 4 more years, we don't even know what he's capable of doing and the type of powers that this executive office has. But now, I have to go back and think about, can I still motivate my community? Will I do everything that I can to motivate my community to vote? And that's why I'm going to be supporting them on local races and supporting local brilliant folks across the country that are running in November race, in hopes that those races that we work around in the different swing states trickle to the top. Because the top right now has disappointed the communities that I come from, and I'm not sure if I can get them to a better place from now until November.
That's so well said. I mean, you just think about one of the movements that you've been a part of is the Women's March. It was, until the uprisings of the last few months, the largest, uprising march in history. And so if you can't move the president with those two events, significant events, and by the way, those are two voting blocks that are probably going to swing this election, Black voters and women, and especially Black women, then how are you going to move any president like Donald Trump? He's completely ignorant of the people's movement, and it's I think you're right. I think I heard someone, I think it was Matt Stoller, said something like, even more so than Obama, which was not great, Joe Biden, at least, I mean, as much as he's like a compromiser, he at least will have a conversation with the left in a way that, listen, the DNC went back on some progress that even in Joe Biden's own platform. Yep. The DNC has gone even more conservative, which is crazy. I don't think that's ever happened in history. So it's shocking. So in terms of let's just play out like a Biden presidency. What do you think are the priorities in the first 100 days to organize around, if it's Joe Biden?
If it's Joe Biden, I think one of the things he's already confirmed publicly, and we're going to have to hold him to it, is reversing the Muslim ban immediately. I think federal minimum wage, that is very easy to do. You got to do it. Just get on that, get a piece of paper, start signing some things. I think there's an opportunity, while I know that he has publicly said he does not support Medicare for all, but I need him to start working on the expansion of healthcare immediately. We are in a global pandemic, Nomi. We know so many people personally. I'm in New York, as you know. I mean, I'm not right now, but I'm from New York. And I just know too many people that have died from this pandemic. And a lot of these people didn't have health care. So I need him to understand that this is an absolute red alert emergency. Another thing that I need him to do is I need him to protect our undocumented young people. DACA, you need to put that back and make sure it's holistic, and start thinking about what you're going to do for the parents of these children. So while we may not be able to yet get comprehensive immigration reform, the president, as we know, does have powers that they are able to use for executive orders in the meantime. I think that there are also opportunities around some foreign policy issues, just to kind of put some things on the record, because we are going to be in big trouble if we don't start reversing some of the course of the things that Donald Trump has put forth and the type of relationships that we now have around the world, which weren't good before, but Donald Trump has fueled and made even worse. So those are some of the things I've been thinking about for the first 100 days. But for me, I'm more focused, Nomi, on thinking about 2022. I'm really thinking about who are the folks we're going to run, how many more people can we add to the chorus of progressives in Congress, and what are we going to do in 2024. 2024, Joe Biden is not going to run in 2024. The progressive left has to start today, actually really yesterday, figure out who it is that we are going to get behind now, not wait a year before 2024 or 6 months before and put forth the progressive candidate to run a primary. We need to know now who those people are that we're going to support, have those conversations now. So I'm committed to a 2024 that may be an election where we're able to actually put forth someone that we could be proud of. Someone where we don't have to say, come on, folks, lesser of two evils. Come on, folks, fascism, not fascism. I want to be able to say, wow, I'm supporting a president that aligns with our values. So those are the conversations that I'm committed to over the next, and not just conversations, but work that I'm committed to. And also when it comes to legislators, we have, as you saw in New York, every election, we take out 6 incumbents in one shot. I mean, it's remarkable what we've been able to accomplish in New York City. I just ran a young Muslim man named Zohran Mamdani for office in Astoria. And a lot of people,
my district.
Yeah, that's right. And a lot of people thought we were crazy. They were like, what? Who's Zohran Mamdani and how is he going to get money? And a lot of people, even progressive organizations, to be quite honest, we didn't really jump behind him except for DSA, which are my people, which are our friends and bold and courageous. And you know what? Zohran is going to the state legislature. Yeah. He is a vehement pro-BDS, progressive on every issue. He's like, $15 is not enough. give everybody health care. Like, that's who he is, and that's how he won in the district. The last thing that I'll say for us, Nomi, is that the progressive left really has to understand that we got to put our differences aside and we have to unite in the way that the right unites. We're not going to always agree on everything, and that's okay. But we have to find places where we align, and we got to start organizing right now. Another reason why we have to defeat Trump, and I want people to hear this very clearly from me, that Supreme Court is already in trouble. And we cannot allow Donald Trump to not only appoint more Supreme Court justices, because your friend Ruth Ginsburg is a great lady, but you know what? She's not going to live forever. And so we have to remember the Supreme Court is still on the line, although it's already leaning conservative. And Donald Trump has appointed a quarter of the United States federal judges on these benches in your state.
Horrifying.
So
Horrifying.
The last thing that I need is to give Donald Trump 4 more years to appoint more conservative judges around the country. So forget about Joe Biden, forget about Kamala Harris, forget about, Joe Biden was disrespectful to this one and to that one, and we'll deal with him later. I cannot allow this president to continue to appoint federal judges around the country and to take the Supreme Court to a place of no return. We're already almost to a place of no return, but we really could be at a place of no return and literally take us back 50 years on multiple issues that we've gained over the last 3 decades.
Exactly. Hear, hear. Linda, such clarity. Thank you. Thank you. You said it brilliantly. Great course of action. I would love to have you on to have like a deeper conversation outside of the RNC, dumpster fire that it is.
Listen, I watch the RNC every day because let me tell you, you don't got to agree with them. They are outrageous. They're a hate, fear-mongering party. But let's just say that Republican National Convention is something to watch to understand how our opposition speaks directly to their base without appeasing other voting blocs, how loyal they are to their base, how they do not throw, and also, interestingly enough, how diverse that RNC stage has been, including more Arabs and Muslims on those stages than we saw at the DNC. I'm just saying,
unbelievable.
That's what I have to say.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nomi. I appreciate you.
Thank
Keep
you, Linda.
fighting the good fight.
You too. Thanks, sister. Take care. All right, up next, we have a great panel. We're going to be talking a little bit more about the what happened at the RNC, but specifically, how the right wing is violating the law, specifically, the Republican Party, but under Trump's leadership with Swin Subsang from the Daily Beast, Randy Bryce, former congressional candidate in Wisconsin, and host Rick Unger from Cable News Days, but he now has a radio show as well. So stay tuned. We'll be right back after this little break.
Good evening, America. I'm Kimberly Guilfoyle. Don't count on President Trump's America. Your choice is clear. Now I consider it my duty to fight to protect the socialist Biden-Harris future for our country. The best is yet to come.
America! What happened to it?
Good evening, America. I'm Kimberly Guilfoyle. Don't count on President Trump's America. Your choice is clear. Now I consider it my duty to fight to protect the socialist Biden-Harris future for our country. The best is yet to come.
America! What happened to it?
Good evening, America. I'm Kimberly Guilfoyle. Don't count on President Trump's America. Your choice is clear.
While everybody's getting in, I will just share the fact that I do know Kimberly Guilfoyle, and I think a couple of our guests here do as well, from Fox News Days. Strangely enough, she's actually one of the nicer in-person Fox News hosts. So that, it's so crazy that someone would want to be meaner on stage than they are actually in real life. Don't judge me for it. All right, we have a great panel here. Very excited because we have a diverse group of panelists. First, we have Swin Subsang McCallum Swin. He's a White House reporter at the Daily Beast. He's the co-author of, I found your book, Swin, Sinking
Oh my God.
in the Swamp. I went to your book party. It was such a fancy New York book party. This is
Thank
the
you.
book. all about corruption. We have Rick Unger, who is a radio host, cable news contributor. I used to go on his show back in the day in 2016. Right. We debate with each other. You're one of the good centrists because you actually listen a little bit. I mean, we'll win you over.
One of the good centrists.
You supported me in my campaign. I don't know how centrist that is.
I did. Mm.
And then we have the one and only Randy Bryce, who ran for Congress under against Paul Ryan. I think you guys all remember. He got Paul Ryan out of office. Very powerful campaign. An activist iron worker. He was a surrogate for Bernie Sanders this time around. I wanted like a lot of Randy Bryces everywhere, and they should have been on stage during the DNC. Was waiting for it. I don't know why, Randy, they didn't invite you to speak, but, you know.
COVID. How you doing? Great to see you, Naomi.
Great to see you, too. Okay, I was told to turn up my volume. So these are the things that we have to deal with when we're sitting here at home and not in a studio, is that I just don't know what I did. So, guys, while I'm dealing with the volume, Swen, I'm going to go to you because you have covered the corruption and the swamp with Donald Trump. You wrote a book on it. Now there's this whole issue with the Hatch Act. In terms of corruption, there's a lot there. Is this Hatch Act situation with the convention, like, is there anything we can do about it? Do they seem to care?
No, they absolutely do not seem to care. In fact, among senior Trump administration officials and senior White House brass, it's often been, for a stretch of years now, something of a badge of honor that public-facing senior officials take and they take it with a point of pride and mockery whenever they start racking up these Hatch Act violations that come out of the Office of the Special Counsel. And a public version of this was, I believe it was last year when Kellyanne Conway was asked by a reporter at the White House on camera, what do you make of the OSC coming out and said that you violate the Hatch Act on 2 televised occasions, and she laughed it off saying, and I quote, blah, 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 and also, I quote, tell me when the jail sentence starts. So this is something that people in Trump's inner circle and in his immediate administrative orbit laugh about. They don't take it seriously. If they want to portray themselves as conservatives who value the rule of law, this is one federal law that they absolutely could not care less about. And it is perfectly in line with the nature of this convention and this presidency, where using the powers and the levers of the federal government and the awesome authority that comes with it for immediate political and personal gain is something that is a feature, not a bug of the Trump era. And you don't have to be an investigative reporter to figure that out. The most prominent people from the president on down in his family and in his West Wing have been very upfront about that since day one of the administration, and they do not care. They revel in the media and democratic spectacle of people coming after them about it because there isn't a proper enforcement mechanism. Right. What I quoted Kellyanne Conway saying earlier, she's kind of right in a weird way, because what does she have to fear if all she's going to get is a finger wagged in her face? There's just nothing for them to actually be concerned about.
Well, now, I mean, there should be some things to be concerned about. Manafort is in jail. Roger Stone was in jail, possibly pardoned. I mean, his inner circle, Steve Bannon, of course, was seized by postal workers on a yacht. His inner circle is actually, I mean, is that why Kellyanne Conway, well, I'll open this up to the group. What do you guys think? Kellyanne Conway is out, and I mean, do we think it has anything to do with her fear of retribution?
I'll respond and tie it to the Hatch Act. I mean, Kelly Conway violated the Hatch Act when she had first gotten there. We all remember how she went on TV and promoted Ivanka's shoe line, right? You can't do that when you're a public official. But here's the truth of the matter. I don't know that we should be spending too much time. I mean, Swin is right. All of these things were absolutely violations of the law. But I'm afraid I could also point out Hatch Act violations in the last administration. And the truth of the matter is nobody outside of the Beltway cares about it.
Well, nobody cares. But, I mean, there's also the aspect that he's just controlling mechanisms of oversight.
Well, I mean, there are
classic dictator move.
There are bigger fish to fry in that regard, I would say, than Hatch Act violations. Not that it's right to violate the Hatch Act. Worth noting, nobody ever since the creation of the Hatch Act has ever been prosecuted under the Hatch Act, not once. But there are bigger fish to fry there. I mean, if we want to talk about Donald Trump violating not only norms, but violating actual laws, violating the Constitution, it's a pretty regular occurrence around there.
Yeah, and it's another thing too is, we wouldn't have any violations of the Hatch Act if Donald Trump wasn't so incompetent and was able to get a handle on his coronavirus instead of telling us it's going to magically disappear when we had 50 cases.
We'd still have him.
We'd still have him, right? I thought you said
coronavirus. We'd still have violations of the Hatch Act.
Yeah. So I mean, it was a gaslighting move, though. I mean, the fact, like he didn't have to. This is what's so crazy about it, is he's just he's doing it to like brag about it. I mean, there's no reason why they had to do it from the Rose Garden. There's no reason why. I mean, it's almost like, see how far I can get away with things, but.
And also, I think that's exactly it. Yeah. Seeing what he can get away with. He thinks he's
macho.
He's a monarch, right? And any rules, and he told the truth once in his life, and that's when he could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue. Well, now he's managed to allow 170,000 Americans to die. How many Benghazis is that we're dealing with now? And looking at the big picture, it just seems like he's like throwing a bone out. It was like, let's see how fired up we can get people over this, and just one thing after the other.
And it's a funny thing, Randy actually brought up Benghazi there, because in terms of assessing how bad faith a lot of those Republican attacks were during the Obama era, forget COVID. When Trump came into office, I believe within his first year in office, he had 2 or 3 of things you could actually have painted as Trump's Benghazis, including in Niger, when he first stepped in to the role of commander-in-chief. And obviously it received not a hint, not a peep from Republicans on Capitol Hill in terms of investigative powers. So you kind of get where their priorities are on that front. But again, I digress. That's a tangent. But back to your point about the Hatch Act violations. Of course, Rick Unger is right. There are bigger fish to fry. You're not going to win many votes in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, or Florida by harping too much on about it. Doesn't mean it's not worth pointing out, as so many newsworthy things are. But something that was more offensive to me, not just as a reporter who covers this shit, and injects it into my eyeballs day in and day out, 24/7, but also just as a political observer, is what some of these alleged violations last night during night 2 of the Republican convention included. The content of it. One of them was Trump's naturalization ceremony at the White House, where he tried to put on a show of, look at me, I am for legal immigration, and look at the diversity of nationality and ethnicity and perhaps even religion of the people who I have standing up here with me. The reason that was so offensive, beyond the alleged Hatch Act infractions, is because it was trying to paint him as someone who is welcoming to a certain kind of legal immigrant without acknowledging the fact that, and I say this only somewhat jokingly, that the number of legal immigrants they had there on stage was dangerously approaching the caps that his administration has been trying to put on legal immigration and refugees. I mean, my first thought when looking at that was, okay, if that's your message, well, then what about all the other legal immigrants coming to the United States? Forget illegal immigration for a moment. This administration, in policy, action, and rhetoric, has done everything they can to dramatically reduce the number of legal immigrants, particularly when their skin color is brown or darker than someone like Stephen Miller's or Donald Trump's. So it was a particularly cynical and disgusting display that, that should be beneath the dignity of most people observing.
So I want to shift just a little bit real quick, because we have a few minutes here. There is a question, I think, on the Democratic side, and Swin, I have a specific aspect of this question I'd like to ask you. On the Democratic side, whether it's the big tent, let's welcome Republicans into the convention, or whether it's the progressives understanding that you have to appeal to the needs of working people and offer a real distinct alternative to Trump to mobilize voters. And so I think I know where Randy stands. I think I know where Rick stands. But Swin, you understand Trump. And so what do you think his pressure points are? Where do you think it really gets under his skin? And then I'll open it up to the rest of you. to fight it out?
That what gets under his skin? I'm
mean,
sorry.
like in terms of the pressure points, what's really going to, what is the strategy that you think, knowing what Trump's coalition is, knowing what Trump's base is like, knowing 2016 election and where we are in the polls right now versus in 2016, where do you see, because watching the RNC, you're seeing like, I mean, I don't know what the message, it's all over the place, but it seems to be all over the place because he wants to depress the vote just enough and then get his base excited enough. But in terms of strategy from the left, what do you think gets under his skin the most? The real left strategy or the centrist strategy?
Well, when it comes to this particular president, the strategic lizard brain that goes along with it is, if you talk to people who are close to the president and work for him in the administration or on the campaign or what have you, he really does seem to believe that he can win the presidency for a second term with a combination of law and order fear-mongering, attacks on cancel culture and political correctness, which is sort of an outgrowth of what he did in 2015 and 2016, tax cuts, and China and the virus. There's a pretty low ceiling when it comes to things that President Trump actually thinks, according to people who are close to him and talk to him often, thinks could be the winning formula for getting him across the finish line in 2020, which everybody, including to a certain extent Donald Trump, knows will be an uphill battle. Even if you acknowledge that Joe Biden's current standing may not be as strong as some of the polling might suggest that he is. But in terms of what gets under his skin, look, like I think Biden has turned out to appear to be a more formidable opponent to Donald Trump than a lot of Trump's lieutenants may have suspected going 6 months back or a year before. Having said that, I did some reporting, I think about a year ago, of Trump saying repeatedly in private meetings with high roller donors and with friends on different occasions that when the campaign seemed to be shaping out during the Democratic primary between the Democratic socialism and social democracy of a Bernie Sanders versus the more centrist liberalism of a Joe Biden, Trump would repeatedly tell people close to him in private that, you know, a lot of people in my party think socialism is going to be easy to run against if that's the nominee in 2020. But I got to tell you, and of course I'm at least lightly paraphrasing here, that it's not going to be so easy. When you go out there and you tell people, particularly young people, that we're going to give you free health care or forgive all your debt or student debt and give you a free pony or whatever, it has a much stronger populist appeal than a lot of people on the right are giving it credit for. That is where Trump's mind was about a year ago. So whatever he was saying about quote unquote socialism in public, privately, he did concede that it had a populist allure to it, himself being a populist who went out there and made a lot of promises he couldn't keep in 2015 and 2016. So that's where his mind was a year ago. But in the time since, they would be lying to you, both Trump's top advisors and the president himself, if they said that they didn't have increasing concerns about Joe Biden that they didn't have 6 months ago, given his how formidable he has seemed in poll after poll after poll. And that includes their internal numbers as well. I'm sorry, was that too rambling an answer?
No,
Did that give you what you wanted?
You gave me what you wanted, Swin. Randy, I mean, you staged this incredible campaign, not staged, you ran an incredible campaign, a movement-based campaign against Paul Ryan on the left message. Whereas traditionally, like the DCCC would choose a candidate that was more centrist aligned, business interest aligned, whatever it is, maybe a veteran or something. But you did it because you had an alternative message. So let's get your point. And then I'm waiting for Rick to bring in his big.
I don't remember what the question is.
I'll ask.
Okay.
It's a problem with Zoom.
It was, I mean, watching the DNC, I was waiting for, it was great to see some union members be able to have their voices added. But I mean, we could have seen, I missed like somebody like Sarah Nelson, who's just been an amazing voice. I thought she would have been perfect for the DNC. To have union members like say, we have leadership here. You let leadership of the unions talk, especially somebody that's been so incredible in getting things done, talking about, you know, threatening a strike and shutting down the airlines and getting things done. That's the direction I feel we need to go. We need to have unions not looked at as like an ATM for candidates, but as the activism that's going to go along with the legislators, because it's going to take both. It's going to take both to put pressure on them. They're never going to once they get elected, going to feel safe, and we got to keep their feet to the fire to get them to do things, to understand what we need. If we're not going to have union members elected, we need to make sure that we have union members present that are going to keep organizing and antagonizing until we get things done that are going to help working people.
So, Rick, with that being said, in the late 70s, early 80s, the New Democrats, the DLC, whatever you want to call that coalition of folks, there was a real conscious effort to rid at least the DNC structure of union members and replace them with lobbyists and pro-business types. So, I mean, is the Big Tent strategy that I'll editorialize, that lost us 1,200 seats across the country, is that strategy gonna take us to a win this time around?
I don't know. Let me respond to a couple of things that I heard. I'm gonna say one thing about what Swin said, which is, Swin, I can tell you for an absolute certainty that the Trump campaign always saw Joe Biden as their most formidable candidate. It was not an accident that he did what he did in Ukraine, okay? I've been getting that kind of intelligence for over 2 years now. He was always the candidate.
It depends who you talk to on the campaign, but yes, you are correct. A lot of people on the campaign.
I talked to all of them, and
that's not possible, but go on.
Well, I don't know.
All of them that have left.
The guy who runs the campaign is basically Sean Hannity, and I talked to him.
Rick Unger knows they're all Fox News hosts.
Of course they are. Exactly. Randy, I love what you had to say. And to tie that into what you just asked me, Nomi, look, the biggest mistake the Democrats ever made, and I point this out, it feels like every day, was losing our relationship with working America. And I am completely dissatisfied with look, my choice for vice president, I've never been shy about saying this. I never on my show once said who I preferred for president, but I didn't keep it a secret that I wanted Tim Ryan to be the vice presidential candidate, because Tim Ryan connects to working class Americans. And until the Democrats bring them back into the fold and show them that there's a reason for them to be trusted, it's always going to be hard. We're going to have a close election. And that's why we're going to have a close election. Those people who Randy used to work with, steelworkers, right, Randy?
Ironworkers, correct.
Ironworkers. Well, I used to be a member at the end of every summer. I would get my card for the Steelworkers Union because I used to work in the mills to make money to go to college in Ohio, right? Until those people are ready to come back to the Democrats, and they're not yet, because we haven't given them a reason to. It's not a Big Tent party. We just talk about it. Now, the tent has gotten bigger in terms of people like you, Nomi, right? I mean, the centrists have been forced into it, I grant you. It has not been a willing invitation. But you know what? You guys organize great. Bernie organized stupendously, and now they're a part of this because they have to be. But until we bring back working class America and those very leaders that you just correctly referenced that were tossed out of the DNC, every single fight is going to be a tough fight.
Okay, rapid round here before we wrap up. One name answer. Who is the best surrogate for Donald Trump? Swin, go first.
Diamond and Silk. Sorry, that was 3 answers or 2 answers, but I'm sticking to it.
Randy Rice.
I'll go with Pompeo.
It's now got to be Kimberly Guilfoyle, because anybody who gives a barn burner speech and ends up with the arms open waiting for the love and there's nobody in the audience, that's who I want to be his surrogate.
Or the cocaine dealer.
Oh,
excuse me. Excuse me.
Exactly.
What about the lobster guy in Maine? No,
what
my
about
favorite.
The lobster guy?
I have to say, Eric Trump. I was expecting dummy Eric Trump, and I thought he did a good speech.
He actually did,
and with passion. I was surprised. So Eric Trump for president, I guess, in 2040.
Well,
just when he gets out of jail.
Between Fredo and Shemp. Fredo being the older brother, I think Eric gets a bad rap. I think Eric's smarter than Fredo.
I mean, they gave him a better spot.
Yeah.
All right. So right before we go, the question from our chat, Rick, very important question. They want to know, several people want to know, is there THC Oh, no, it's in Randy's vape. I thought it was in Rick's vape. I'm confused. Who's got the vape? Rick's got the vape.
I've got the vape.
Rick's got the vape.
Always got the vape.
That's what I thought. Is there THC in that?
Oh, no. You know something? Every time I do one of these, and I'm always vaping, you know that, Nomi. I never put it down. I always get that question. No, there's nothing good in there. It's just nicotine.
That's no fun.
I know. I'm getting too old for that stuff. I can't do it like I used to.
You're never too old for a little THC.
Yeah. It's all changed. Now I have to be next to my bed.
All right, guys, thank you for everything. Thanks for joining the show. Can't wait to see what happens tonight, and we'd love to have you all back on because I know that there's going to be plenty more to discuss in the next 7 weeks before the election. Yeah, I know. It's crazy. All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us.
Have a great day.
All right. In the final seconds, I want to give a couple shout outs to our YouTube folks, friends. We have Glenn Risden, Amang, and Lee Levin. Dorsey apologizes for all the Giuliani. Lee Levin, I guess you're making complaints about the Giuliani noises. I don't blame you. Daniel Krieger, Ben Riley, Rye, and S. Blackmare, who's a frequent contributor. Thank you for the love. Thank you to our patrons. If you're not a patron, go to patreon.com/The Nomi Key Show. For you patrons, I want you to know that we're putting together a DNC and an RNC wrap-up, and we're doing some special content, so you're going to have that pretty soon. And if you want some swag, go to thenomikeyshow.com. We have mugs, and we have bags, and we have stickers. And that's all for now. All right, I'll see you tomorrow, 3 p.m. Eastern to 4 p.m. on YouTube on The Nomi Key Show. Stay tuned tonight. Watch the RNC. Learn, as Linda Sarsour says, watch the RNC, learn what their tactics are. That's how we organize. Thank you to Dorsey. Thank you to Kyle. Thank you to Ruthie. Thank you to George. Thank you to Kelly. And, of course, thank you to our guests, Swin Subsang, Randy Bryce, and Rick Unger, as well as Linda Sarsour. See you tomorrow.
I'm Kimberly Guilfoyle. Don't count on President Trump's America. Your choice is clear. Now I consider it my duty to fight to protect the socialist Biden-Harris future for our country. The best is yet to come.
America! What happened to it?
Good evening, America. I'm Kimberly Guilfoyle.